From the American Neurological Association, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ross, president of the ANA, and your guest host for the podcast this month. Welcome to this special edition of ANA Investigates. We're about to wrap up another exciting annual meeting of the American Neurological Association, ANA 2024. Before we all pack up and go home, I'm thrilled to sit down with Dr. Allison Willis, this year's chair of the ANA's annual meeting programming committee, to talk about some of the highlights of the meeting. Allison, thank you for joining me here.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you had to summarize ANA 2024 in 3 words, what would they be?
I would describe this year's meeting using the words inspiring, cutting edge, and joyful.
Wonderful. There are several plenary sessions focusing on the latest and greatest science in neurology. Was there one in particular that you would like to emphasize for the podcast?
Gosh, Betsy, that's a really tough question. We had some outstanding plenary sessions this year. If I were to give my personal opinion on one of the plenaries, it would be the one that I learned the most from. And that would be the session on the emerging applications of non-invasive neuromodulation in neurology. That plenary for me personally was really invigorating because I didn't know much about neuromodulation beyond what I'd come across in training. And as a movement disorder specialist, I, of course, am very familiar with invasive neuromodulation as a means of helping individuals with movement disorders. But I learned so much is on the horizon and is coming into our field for non-invasive neuromodulation, and it was very exciting.
Couldn't agree more. There were uses for neuromodulation that I hadn't actually considered, and it was just a wonderful session. Allison, what was your favorite part of the meeting this year?
Oh, my favorite part of the meeting this year is always the poster sessions. It is wonderful to see the future of academic neurology, to see future leaders in our field in every way that it can be imagined. I really also enjoy connecting with colleagues near and far from the past and from the present. And when I walk around the hallways at ANA, more so than any other meeting, I feel as though we are creating like new networks of ideas and generating new futures for neurology. ANA is the perfect size for that kind of synergy and exploration. And we hug a lot. I've been hugging all week.
Absolutely.
So, Betsy, I'm going to switch over and ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
You have been an inspiring and amazing leader as president this year for the ANA, and I would really like to talk about your presidential symposium. It was called the Present and Future Applications of AI in Neurological Care and Research. Why did you choose AI for that session, Betsy? And what were the big takeaways for you from that talk?
Oh, thank you so much for that. Well, as you know, there has just been a dizzying explosion of interest in artificial intelligence with the opening launch of LLM systems like ChatGPT. And I thought the time was right for all of us to think about the wonderful things that artificial intelligence is doing for us now and its potential going forward. It's going to permeate everything that we do in the clinic and in research and the advances that it can bring. So we brought a very eclectic group of experts to tell us about those applications, but also to give us insight into the workings of deep learning and generative AI to be able to understand both the things that we need to be aware of and areas where we have to think about guardrails to make sure that output from these tools is correct and how we can be thinking about how we test that output for its applications to our patients. But, we had Brian Litt telling us about what his daily life in the neurology clinic would be like in 2035 and how we can use both implantable devices and non invasive devices to give us feedback on how patients are doing over time and how patients themselves can use that information. Really, very inspiring talk. Then we had Lucilla Ono Machado talk with us about the power of informatics and machine learning at personalized healthcare delivery. And she had a wonderful discussion of the importance of making sure that the data that goes into AI algorithm is correct and well curated so that we can have more confidence about the output. And as she put it, if you get the wrong answer, don't blame AI. It's just a tool. And then Paul Thompson told us about the real power of analyzing neuroimaging from large data sets to be able to investigate causes and progression of neurological disease, mapping things like brain growth and areas of vulnerability in conditions like Alzheimer's and schizophrenia. And then we wound up with Yvonne Schultes, who was telling us about wonderful advances in using animal models to understand what's happening between seizures to be able to anticipate when an epileptic spell is about to happen and intervene in that. And these techniques are coming very close to clinical trials. So it was a very broad ranging discussion that I think the audience appreciated. And so I think these tools are just amazing going forward, but they will do the best job if we know exactly what's going on under the hood. And I think that's where ANA is headed, and that's something that our membership will be well equipped to handle.
AI is so important, Betsy. I could see us tackling this topic for the next couple of meetings because there will be new things to think about next year.
I absolutely agree. And the ILW on just the use of Chat GPT was mobbed. So yeah.
I know. I know. It's so interesting.
Allison, at the meeting this year, I've seen some fantastic offerings for trainees and those who are in their early career, from sessions on navigating fellowships to realistic research and residency to landing the career path you want. What was some of the buzz you heard about these sessions?
Betsy, I don't know if you know this about me, but this topic is so near and dear to my heart because I was the early chair of the newly formed programming committee 10, 12 years ago when I first joined the ANA, and the leadership at the time said, it's very important for us to start developing programming for trainees and those early in their career. Let's engage an early career faculty member and charge them with developing that programming for the annual meeting. And so our earliest programming, I recall finding outside speakers who could give lectures on developing an elevator talk or how to power pose before an interview or or how to seek fellowship opportunities and how to communicate after interviews, and look at what it's become. I am so proud. We, in this meeting, had everything from the basics of applying to neurology residency and fellowship training to understanding how to navigate an academic career. And this year was particularly inspiring because we began to think about how to support our colleagues who are interested in a new type of career, which is a hybrid of an academic neurologist and an industry centered neurologist. So it has been wonderful to see those early seeds fully blooming and even growing in ways that I couldn't have imagined 10 years ago in this meeting.
Oh, I could not agree more. I had the pleasure and privilege of being at the early trainee breakfast, and at the table I was hosting, there were fourth year medical students about to apply for residency. There were GPY4 trainees who were looking for fellowships, and the enthusiasm around the table was just so elevating. The thing that really struck me was that when I asked them what drew them to neurology, I heard almost uniformly that it was the excitement of the therapeutic options that they knew they would have as physicians. And that's something that is new. I really have not heard that in, 5 years ago. We've traditionally been a discipline of being able to make the right diagnosis, but then not being able to do very much. But that is really experiencing a sea change now. And I think we're all getting caught up in that enthusiasm and optimism going forward. I'd love to see it. And thank you so much for your starting this movement, really, of training our next generation. And we owe a great debt of thanks to you, Allison.
You know, that from elevator talks and power poses to this, I think I and the leaders who supported the growth of the training opportunities and the professional development for junior faculty and trainees in the ANA couldn't be prouder of what we've all done over the years and how these efforts have really blossomed.
Absolutely.
I still power pose, by the way.
I do too.
It works.
It totally works. So, Allison, as we wind down our discussion, for those who are on the fence about joining the ANA or attending an annual meeting in the future, what would you tell them?
I would first tell them to ask themselves, why are they on the fence?
Good point.
And I would encourage them to reach out to any of us in the leadership or other members and pose the questions that would be necessary for them to understand why they're on the fence. Is it the time of year of the meeting? Are you concerned the meeting is too big or too small? Are you worried that you won't see yourself here? And if your worry is that I won't see myself at this meeting, then let me very directly encourage you by saying, yes, you will. You will see and meet academic neurologists who are working as researchers throughout the translational research cycle. You will find researchers who are basic scientists, lab scientists, dry lab scientists. You will find master clinicians and master educators who approach and advance academic neurology through that route. You will find academic neurologists who are industry partners and advance neuroscience and neurology through that route. So if your concern is, I won't see someone like me here, I would say, I think you will. Beyond that, reach out to any one of us with your questions, and we'd be happy to answer them. And hopefully see you as a member and at a future meeting.
Oh, Allison, that is so perfect. I can also say that for some of our colleagues who haven't come to the ANA meeting in a number of years, when they do come back, they note what a sea change the ANA has undergone in the last 10 years. This is, a very intellectually rich meeting. And beyond that, I agree, we're the perfect size. It really feels like a family reunion every year and well worth coming. And we're about to approach our 150th family reunion next year. I think that that's the perfect time to bring everyone home to celebrate all that we've achieved in neurology and all that the future can bring.
It's going to be one heck of a party next year.
Agreed. So that was Dr. Allison Willis, chair of the ANA's annual meeting programming committee and professor of neurology and of epidemiology at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ross, president of the American Neurological Association, professor of neurology and neuroscience, and director of the Center for Neurogenetics at Weill Cornell Medicine. ANA Investigates is the official podcast of the American Neurological Association. The show's producers are members of the ANA Education Innovation Committee, chaired by Michelle Johansen. Our program was produced today by Michelle Johansen, Adeline Goss, Caitlin White, and Jen Hurley. You can listen to past episodes of the show, subscribe to us so you never miss an episode, and access all of the ANA's educational programs on the Education tab at myana.org. That's it for ANA Investigates. Adeline Goss will be back as your host next month.